The following program makes use of copywritten material as part of a psychological examination of music. All music copyrights remain property of their respected creators. I would just like to suggest to you, lovely listeners, if you guys want to go out and get a drink or check out the live music in this town, the scene is at 12th Street Bar. If you remember Smoking Josie's, then you already know where the new bar is located. They've got open mic now on Tuesdays, so if you want to play some acoustic guitar or sing, or if you've got some poetry you want to read or some comedy, or if you've just got like a message to the world, the mic is yours. Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. If you forget where it's located, it's at 1024 12th Street. The times are Monday through Saturday, 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., Sunday, 6 p.m. to midnight. Don't miss out.
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to the Conversationalists.
How's everybody doing tonight?
We're doing pretty good.
That's right.
All right. Well, we've got a episode today where we're interviewing Alex Van Fleet.
Absolutely. The famous, the infamous Alexander Van Fleet.
Right.
Cool dude, man. I really enjoy talking with him. He's a photographer and a very gifted photographer. And dude's got some fantastic work, man. I gotta say that.
Yeah. And it's not just photography. I mean, he's got different mediums, different forms of art. But I mean, I've known him for a while, due to him being my brother-in-law. He's definitely always had something going on, always doing something, always active, within his paradigm. And he's always, kept it going. And, that sort of success is something that, I thought would be good to bring to the table.
Absolutely. So on that note, Johnny.
Yeah?
Take us in.
Welcome to the Conversationalist.
You got diabetes?
Yeah, type 1.
Oh, that sucks, dude.
It's been like a struggle.
Yeah.
I was in the hospital actually during the 4th of July because of that.
This kind of makes me feel like a dick for having these gummy bears out now, so go ahead. I don't want to rub this in your... Christy? Are we good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. I got a question, man, before we dive into this whole thing. How many tattoos do you have?
We were trying to count that yesterday, actually, and it's kind of like blended. I mean, at some point, it's like once it becomes a math equation, you kind of stop counting.
Right.
But I think what we came up with was 22.
Nice.
So
now, how many of these are stuff that you, like, designed or came up with?
Most of them are, like, either... original designs, or some of them is stuff I found online, but I found like my own meaning for it. I've actually got this is all original. This was like a Friday the 13th tattoo,
Right.
And this is all like stuff that's related to music. Got, like,
Was it how strange it's to be
anything at all? It's a Neutral Milk Hotel song.
I think I've heard that band before.
I've definitely heard the band before.
That's that Over the Ocean CD, and I think that the name of it is How Strange It Is to Be Anything at All.
I think I definitely know I've heard the band name before, but as far as like notable tracks that I could pop off the top of my head, I don't have any. I think
I kind of know the one song. I found the tattoo before I found the band, but luckily I ended
Which
up
song?
liking the band. How Strange It Is to Be Anything at All.
I've not heard that.
I don't know if that's actually the name of the song.
I've heard Two-Headed Boy and one about Anne Frank.
It's something about an airplane over the ocean. I'm like embarrassed not to know this, but
nah, it's all right. We don't know it either, so you're not alone on this.
I mean, yeah, but you don't have the tattoo. The tattoo had more meaning. It was just actually kind of interesting. The way I got into photography and art so much was I actually have really bad social anxiety, and I get kind of this mild anxiety disorder called depersonalization or derealization, where it's somewhere between like calm and like panic attack. There's this like shade of gray where it's almost like being in third person, and I think that helps me a lot with my photography, is like just because that's kind of how I view the world, is slightly different than I guess most people. And it was just a reminder that, like, you know, I think most of my tattoos are meant to be like reminders of, you know, things I need to keep in mind, and it's just about gratitude and like, you know, just accepting the blessing of like getting to be here on this planet.
Absolutely.
You know, as much like craziness and everything that's always going on at any point, that the fact that you can you know, just be here and just try and be grateful for that.
I've had several like tattoo ideas whenever I would, throughout my time, because, you know, I've, you know, faced adversity from homelessness to addiction and all those terrible things, and you know, I'm deeply interested in like owls. Like I love owls. Like I love the big eyes, and I love like the chest. Like they have like their fuzzy chest. Like everything about them I find interesting. But also I find
a little chest fluff.
You know, well, you know, some of them have like certain patterns in their hairs or whatever, colors in their hairs, and
right,
you know,
and patterns in the feathers.
Yeah,
I got you.
But also, I like that they're sort of kind of a symbol of maybe wisdom or learning or something like that. And I always wanted to get like an owl, like kind of in like the forearm area right here, and then on the very end of it, it say the words "Don't panic."
I actually have a really good friend, and she's in some of the prints that I brought with me, who's also an artist and a model and like a singer. She's just like one of the most talented people I know. Her name's Nikki Nebula. Okay. She's out of Austin, Texas, and she does some crazy cool stuff. Actually, Nikki, if you listen to this, you still owe me an owl painting with some geometric stuff on it that I traded you for a photo shoot. So if you could mail that to me, or next time in Austin, I'm going to pick that up from you.
That's awesome.
If you're
definitely a shout out to Nikki Nebula. I love you. You're like one of my favorite people.
Do you have like artists that you look up to, like maybe photographers or people that you've met across in your journeys that you really you enjoy or you support them?
I kind of grew up in the Houston art community, in the Houston art scene, and was lucky enough to learn from several local artists. Both my parents were collectors, and they have very different styles. And being raised within that really influenced me. Actually, one of my favorite artists passed away about, I think it was maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. His name was Lee Littlefield. Mm-hmm. And he would do these like amazing wood tree sculptures, and they were all painted super colorful. It was like out of Dr. Seuss, and he would just plant them like randomly, like on the side of the freeway, with like a goal of just like trying to brighten the world around us. And he was a really big influence, just as like a person, but also as an artist. And I was really grateful to get a show with him while he was alive. I studied under a metal sculptor, Scrap Daddy, Mark Bradford, and he's won the Artist Choice in the Art Car Parade a lot of times, and he uses a lot of recycled materials and makes these giant mobile creatures, and getting to be a part of that was like a really cool experience as a kid, and it's kind of influenced me now in that I'm doing more of these mixed medium recycled pieces involving metal and wood, which I can totally credit to being influenced by Mark Bradford, Lee Littlefield, other Houston artists.
Now, did Mark Bradford do that specific mailbox?
Yes, okay. He did that mailbox.
Very steampunk vibe.
It's actually like a Baba Yaga like house, and it has like bird legs, and it's a house, and it's all made out of metal.
It's a badass mailbox.
I bet it is.
I think we actually had to put that in our backyard because they would stop putting mail in it. We had to put out like a regular mailbox.
Probably terrified of it. Right? Who lives here? Tim Burton.
Also, a big family friend of ours is Floyd Newsom, who's the head of. He's a really amazing artist. Does just every kind of medium you can imagine. He's the head of the art department over at University of Houston downtown. Really big influences are also James Turrell. I love playing with light. Photography is the study of light, and I've been slowly trying to incorporate stuff like that into my work.
Now, when you take pictures, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but when you take pictures, like, are you like always set and always prepared, or like are there moments where like because maybe you'd be walking down the street and then you just see something? Like, do you have something at your availability that you can always like go to, or like?
I'm definitely influenced by my surroundings. Yeah. I have places. Of course, I've got like places all over, like Houston, Austin, wherever that like, I'm like, this is a cool place to shoot. I've done a couple shoots here, but sometimes I'll be driving on the road and I'll see something. Kind of mixing the two questions. One of my hugest influences would definitely be Shepard Fairey and his work with like Obey. And the idea of street art and public art.
Have you ever tagged anything? Tagged any buildings?
I've never tagged any buildings, but I do a type. What I'll do is I do building scaping with projections. So it's kind of cool in the sense that it's there for the moment. It gets to display the art publicly, but it doesn't do any damage to the property. So if like security shows up, or it's just kind of like turn off the projector. And
yeah, I think I've actually seen shows. I don't know where they were. Maybe they were in Russia or like something. But actually, I think I saw one against the Big Ben or Parliament, or one of those big buildings in the UK, where they would do like the light projection.
There was a big one in the UK where they set up like something crazy, like a 100,000K projector.
Yeah.
And it was like 20 projectors and stuff, and they were able to just like scape everything.
So whenever you do something like that, do you just is it all like computer animation, or is it like pictures that you just sort of got like a slideshow, or?
Yeah, I basically figured out how to do animation with my photography, where I'll take several images and then compress them. I actually have some samples up on YouTube. I think my channel is AVF Images, and it's I did a couple called the Werewolf Project, where I'll take my photography and add geometric shapes, all sorts of different editing to it, and then compress it kind of like into a rapid slideshow. It's kind of like a strobe light. If you have epilepsy, you might be kind of careful with that one, but
not the market that you're trying to reach out to, the epileptic.
If you're
community.
epileptic, I'm sorry, my art's not for you.
Maybe you should just
have some
your
stuff
own,
you can look at, but you might want to stay away from some of the visuals.
I noticed in some of your photos that we looked at earlier that you have a lot of like triangles and like a lot of different shapes or whatever. Like, is that just like you just toss a certain image in there, or do you sort of like?
Yeah, I'll use like an overlay. For a long time I was doing nothing but black and white photography. And this was back when I was kind of like, nobody really had any idea who I was. I still don't think that many people know who I am, but...
Well, I'm telling you right now, since you're on the Conversationalist, you're going to get the Conversationalist bump. I'm calling it right now. You wait 1 week, okay? If you get more fans, you thank us.
That'd be cool. But I was doing nothing but black and white photography, and somebody made a comment about putting the color back in because they wanted a color photo, and I just wanted to take black and white. So the way adding all the geometrics and the foreign colors came about was actually a challenge of taking that black and white photography and then trying to add elements of color, elements of shape, really into sacred geometry. I've got like the sacred geometry chess piece. I got a little seed of life.
Is there any specific symbolism that covers some of your work, though?
The symbolism in my work, a lot of it is I use you mentioned the triangles. I use very sharp shapes because a lot of my work is actually comes from like a deeper side of where I'm trying to get out some sort of emotional pain. I'm trying to express a message that's more than just like, here's a pretty photo or here's an interesting photo. There's, a lot of times there's like a deeper suffering in it, I want to say, but saying that word just it sounds so emo and don't want to like.
Right.
I swear to God, I'm okay. But it really is. And I think, with like any art form, like music, dance, cooking, or whatever, I think those pieces of work that have that emotional backing have just so much more value, and usually where it's coming from a place of like a real artisan motivation than just like meeting a deadline or producing a piece of work to produce a piece of work. And you can really tell the difference, whether it be in a painting, a photograph, or a song.
And the thing is, I think people can tell. That's what I think is awesome. Like, had I not met you before and I looked at those pictures, I would have said, wow, man, this is pretty deep stuff. You know what I mean? Or if you were listening to a song and you just felt like the drums hitting a little bit harder, like the certain melodies just swerving through it a little bit crazier, you think, wow, man, this is really interesting. Like, I think people's perception of art is obviously subjective because anything could mean anything to you. But I think there's always that thought of like, wow, this something's going on in this,
Well, I think that's a goal in like any art form, at least for me, and I know for a lot of people, is connecting with an audience. And you said like people recognize it. I really hope that some of my work or like anything, or the people that I've made real connections with, that they can relate to the work, or they see something that I've been accused that my work is too dark before. I worked in the fashion industry for a while, and it drove me crazy. But I basically got told that my work was too dark, and I actually pushed me to go a bit darker. And I think it's something that I think most artisans struggle with, is like staying true to yourself, staying true to your target audience. And I am someone that, I've struggled with depression my whole life, been hospitalized for it. I've been hospitalized for other stuff too, but that's a different story.
Right.
And, I think it's people that are more drawn to my work do either relate to that darker side or have like something in their past, whether it be, depression or substance abuse issues, or just any sort of, that emotional darkness side that we all try and like hide away in society and try and ignore. And, for me, my healthy outlet is putting it into my artwork.
Absolutely. And do you try and use your art form as like a form of to help people, or as like, because I've always felt as a musician that, obviously back in the day, not so much anymore, but back in the day, like the pains that I was going through obviously came throughout in my music. And the one thing that I always hoped was someone will listen to that and they'll be like, I feel that, I'm going through the exact same thing, and this is pretty much like the soundtrack of my life.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, do you often feel like, whenever you take a picture, and maybe it might come off as dark, but someone will see that and be able to like relate that to their life and think it helps sort of identify themselves, like they can see it in a picture form instead of it being deep down inside themselves. You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
right.
It's more clear in front of them.
I mean, like I said, I've met so many people like at my shows that have been like, hey, I really relate to this work. It's really, brought this up for me. It arose some sort of emotions in people, whether it be, my art or my music. And those people, like, I love sitting down and talking with them, talk to someone on their art show about, like you said, art's really meant to be open into interpretation. And those people, I love hearing their inputs of it stirs up in them. Part of it's getting it out of myself, but it's also showing other people that they're not alone in those struggles. I did a whole big project actually about a year ago now called the Werewolf Project, where I was in a good place in my life. I was in a good place mentally, and I was in a lot of pain. And so instead of taking that out on myself, I organized a bunch of photo shoots and covered all these models in fake blood and like my whole apartment in fake blood. It was real fun to clean up.
Sounds pretty hardcore.
That's the best way to really take care of those kinds of emotions, though. Kind of turn it into art and be creative with it.
Right, is taking those negative, destructive energies and trying to channel it into like creativity.
Story of my life.
Absolutely, man. Like, I think that's how I mean, I could speak for myself, but I'm sure Johnny can chime in as well. That's how I think I've always been able to keep as calm as I am. You know, like, I know I've gone through some stuff where I just erupted in, like, to complete anger, which maybe, I don't know if you can tell by now, like, I'm a pretty chill guy. You know, we're pretty chill people. But I've had some moments where I was just, like, swinging at just nothing. Just, like, you know.
I've definitely had some times, and some of it, like, you'll actually find that in some of my work where I've had those moments where it's just like life gets to the point where I don't think I can handle it and I want to let go, and it's just, you know, fear, anger, you know, distrust, love, all those emotions, like, I think, you know, go into the art where, you know, I've had times where breaking stuff and then, like, I piece it together and make some sort of art form out of it.
Right.
Some of my more recent pieces, you'll see I use, like, a lot of nails, and that's a pretty good stress reliever.
Right.
And, you know, I like working with the metal and the wood. Is like, they're definitely materials that for me are...
Now, whenever you work,
how do you print that? How do you print on the wood? Is my big question.
I've been using a special type of paper. It's called heat transfer paper. So I'll take the photography.
Is this the same thing you would do with shirts?
Pardon?
Is this the same thing you do with shirts?
It's similar, but this paper doesn't quite transfer right onto clothing. It leaves like a little weird stiffness in the shirt and kind of like a plasticky feel. That is kind of what my future projects are, doing some stuff with, doing some stuff on clothing.
Well, I'm a size 2XL.
Yeah, you're a pretty big dude. I'm like on the opposite side of the spectrum. I'm like extra small, shopping in the kids department.
Just in case, you know, you need to practice any of your artwork for anyone.
I'll keep that
right
in
down
mind.
the road.
What I was gonna ask you, whenever it comes to like you said, you get like pieces of metal and you turn that into art. Do you just like raid scrapyards or?
I've never really raised scrapyards, but I you know, sometimes I'll just be driving around and I'll see like a wood pallet by a dumpster, and I'll just kind of like drive by and clean out my car real quick and throw in the pallet. Or
you need a truck.
I do. I've been trying to get a larger vehicle, but one of the things about being an artist is sometimes you're starving.
Oh
yeah.
Story of my life. Fuck.
Ramen and Chef Boyardee.
Yeah. All in the name of art, though. But let's. I don't know if we've chimed too much about this, but like, take us to like your beginnings as a photographer. Like, do you remember like your first like days of like picking up like a camera and just taking pictures? Like, how old were you?
My latest tattoo is this camera that my dad gave me when I was a little kid. And one of the things that I was really blessed with my childhood is I got to travel a lot. Really experienced all sorts of different cultures, all sorts of different places.
I'm going to stop you right there, and I'm going to say that that's something that I have always supported. Okay, I lived in the ghetto of Ohio, okay, where the only ambition is to leave. Like, you could stay there and just live a miserable life, or you can get out. And I've gone back to visit several times. That's where my family is, and you just see people, and they're just the most closed-minded, terrible. Not my family, but everyone else, like just terrible people. I don't know what it is, just something in the smog or something
you
that just
find that like everywhere.
I know, but
and I think the thing that I would label that as is closed-mindedness.
absolutely.
And I definitely, try and. One of my goals in life is to try and be as open-minded as possible.
God bless you. But I left Ohio and I moved to Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which is a lot more open-minded. I guess you could say a little bit more free-minded. Then I moved here, and then I lived in Pittsburgh for a little while. Then I lived in Michigan for a little while. And I noticed, like, I've met so many different kinds of people that, like, I literally, like, I never stopped to think of, like, I never have those blocks in my head. Like, if I were to meet like an openly gay man, there would be nothing to stop me from engaging with them as in a conversation. One of my first friends whenever I moved here was a Muslim, and I grew up in like an all Catholic sort of environment. So I met a Muslim for the first time. I didn't know what to think, but I was like, hey, I'm meeting someone different. This is kind of cool,
I was raised Jewish, went to a Christian school, and then suggested I should be Buddhist.
Oh, wow.
So, the whole religious spectrum got confusing for a while, but definitely... there's this quote by Mother Teresa that I really, really like that was, wherever you dig your wells deep. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just important to find your own faith and find your own connection with the greater spirit of the universe. Absolutely, she, it, whatever it be, whatever works for you. Just really, I think it's better to have something to believe in than just it all be like chaos.
Sure. But you were saying that you had the access to travel.
Right. I got to travel a lot. My family traveled a bunch when I was a kid. I went to actually a British school for my middle years. Mm-hmm. They actually had like the houses and stuff like they do in Harry Potter. I think I was in
Slytherin.
No, I think I was Hufflepuff. But, I'm totally cool with like a lot of people aren't about Hufflepuff, but
I don't got no beef with them Gryffindors, man.
How was the sorting hat? That's my question.
I think the sorting hat, they just picked pieces of paper out of a box, but so that was definitely interesting. I mean, all my friends like in middle school were like Irish, Scottish, and like Australian and stuff.
That's awesome.
But my dad worked a lot overseas. He's a lawyer, and so I got to travel with him. And then when I got into high school, I got involved with a student ambassador program called People to People, where like basically over the summer they'll take school groups. And the first one I went to was Australia, which was a huge influence on me getting into photography. Because I was like kind of my first trip alone, and I basically hid behind the camera the entire trip, and just the architecture of like Australia, then like being in the coast and like being in the outback, and just like everything I saw there was just like a huge. I love that place. I want to go back and live there.
That'd be awesome.
And then I went to Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore with them. You asked me how I first got into photography. I was lucky enough to go to Africa with my family when I was in middle school, and that's when I got my first camera from my dad. And then recently, this summer, I did Korea, and I did Kenya again, and I just kind of want to take a second to give a shout out to one of the nonprofits I work with over in Africa. It's called African Angels.
Okay.
The website's africanangels.org, and basically just went over there this summer and did a bunch of photos. Over the past 12 years, we've raised money for this smaller village called Makanga in Kenya, where all the proceeds go to this school, and we've built a primary school and a secondary school, and they have about 100 students in each of them. And getting to go there and like see like the other side of the world, and like see in comparison of like how truly blessed we are to like live where we live and deal with like the problems we deal with, and and then see that and like get to see the kids and go see everything was really just like a blessing. But yeah, I've got to travel a lot.
That's really great. When you got your first camera, did your dad give it to you sort of as just like as a gift, like just sort of like have fun, or did you like say like I want to get into photography? And
I don't think I sought it out. I kind of fell into it, and actually I didn't fully. I started out really doing sculptures, and then a couple years later I got more and more into photography. But I think it was my dad had gotten into photography for a while when, I guess in his free time or when he was in college. He had this old camera, and he let me have that camera when we went to Africa. And I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of like rapid fire shooting, which I think a lot of people do in photography. Which, you know, is also cool because that was back in like when it was still film photography kind of. It was like transfer between just film photography into more like digital photography, and now it's like I can fill up like a memory card over like 6 months, and not have to worry about anything.
But do you? I know nothing about photography. Only like the few pictures that I've ever taken, but. Is there like that great of a difference between film and digital, other than just the? I
mean, the physical process of it is very difficult, or very different. And you know, I when I was in high school, I did like some darkroom stuff where you're actually dealing with the chemicals and dealing with the film hands-on.
Wow.
And I mean, one of the huge differences is, you know, you don't have to deal with camera rolls anymore. Like, it'd be like 36 shots, but now I can take like 30,000 shots on like a memory card.
Right.
And also the editing process, like afterwards, of like just what's capable with like, you know, digital technology like Photoshop and all. And now you've got like apps on your phone. And
just filters,
everybody's a professional photographer because they've got like a 20 megapixel camera on their phone.
Right.
Are you telling me you don't use the dispensable ones?
What is it?
I'm just kidding.
I do stick with digital at the moment, just because I can't stand dark rooms.
Right.
There is the artist debate of whether digital photography is actually considered an art medium.
That's what I was going to ask you. The reason I bring that up is I think there's been sort of this renaissance in music where musicians kind of went back to doing reel-to-reel music, you know, recording reel-to-reel or actually using recording tape instead of doing all through digital. And I think... I don't know if it's all ego or if it's an art, because, you know, whenever you do reel, you do tape, it's all, you know, one solid take, and, you know, you have to be a perfectionist in that one, where digital, obviously, you can chop it up, and you can really just play one sound, and you can create a whole song out of that, you know? So, I mean, is there, like, an artist aspect in it where you feel like, you know, I have to do this, I have this one perfect moment that I have to capture, or do you feel like I can use all the tools that I have in my availability to just warp it and create something completely out there?
I think it's just everyone has their own process of what works for them and what, you know, you can generate from that, because, I mean, I personally am trying to get my work where it's more digital and getting from digital to physical, of like everything being printed. And I do think that, you know, the whole Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, there's like 20 million other social media like stuff now, that I think that kind of like lessens the value of like a digital image nowadays.
Right.
But I think it's just what you do with it. I don't think there's a right or wrong way in any of those things. I mean, there's definitely stuff that I won't listen to or look at.
Right.
But, you know, like, I think whatever you're doing, and do it your way, be true to yourself. One of the things that I've really had to buckle down and, like, focus on myself is not taking those outside opinions or that outside criticism too much to heart and still trying to stay true to like what I know,
Right.
or what I see as my like actual work. Because I mean, you know, I've done the whole music scene, I've done like the fashion scene, I'm really trying to focus more on the art scene. But I mean, you know, like drunken club photos, like as much as you put into it, like can still be art, and but it's also like, you know, what lifestyle it is. I think it's just a matter of perspective.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. I mean, I feel like we could honestly just start making a bunch of random ass noise on all these surfaces all over the walls, the tables, the cans, everything right there, and somewhere in there would be art. I think it's just really, you know, what you take in and what you perceive as art.
And I mean, you know, they hate us because they ain't us. There's a lot of haters out there. But
have you ever received like negativity towards your artwork?
I've gotten people threatening to, I'll never work in this industry again because I took my photo and like washed off my watermark and put like MTV and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, that's why I don't work in the fashion industry anymore.
Damn.
You know, I've had people steal photos. I've had a fake profile once. Somebody made a fake profile. That was really interesting. I've had people start Facebook drama, like blah blah blah. You know, and you know, there's just always gonna be people going through what they're going through, and yeah, I mean, sometimes like it gets really hard to not get discouraged in the artwork because there is that negative response. And you know, like, I think kind of what we talked about with a lot of things is everyone's got their own like kind of point of view. And you know, if someone else, I have like I've been blessed enough to meet a lot of people that do support my work. They do tell me, you know, hey, I love this photo you took of me, or hey, I saw this like artwork that you did and it really, you know, inspired me. I think you have like, you know, a good view on life, or just, you know, there's just that positive feedback that I get versus like all that negative stuff. I just got to try and focus on that. Right. And, you know, not everyone's going to like my work and not everyone's going to like me. And
the other day, a mutual friend of me and my guitarist gave a listen to one of our tracks that we've been working on, and they had said, it sounds great, but kind of sounds like the drums are kind of doing a little too much crash cymbal in it. And I play drums, and I remember thinking, like, first off, who the fuck are you to tell me there's too much crash in my damn drums?
Don't you know who I am?
Don't you know who the fuck you're talking to? No. But in the same sense, like, I do go through that a lot whenever, like, people listen to our music, and, like, they're like, it's great, but, you know, maybe there's just a little too much of this. It's like, I take it in, but in the same sense, like, you're saying, you know, staying true to yourself and staying true to your art, you're like, yeah, I might be doing a lot of crash or whatever, but you imagine, like, there's the intensity that, you know, the cymbals bring. There's the intensity of the tones and of the hits and all of the melodies that, you know, you're doing. Like, I think some people take it in and they kind of go into that narrow-mindedness where it's just like, oh, this doesn't please my ear. Oh, I don't like this. Right. Where they don't take time to do what, you know. And I'm not saying people will have to do it the way I do it, but whenever I would listen to music, like, it was like the most like intake of anything I would ever, you know, bring in my life. I mean, I've no spoilers here, but I've done my fair share of drugs, but nothing ever blew me away more than laying in my bed and listening to music and then just taking it all in, every piece and every instrument or whatever. You take it all in at once. That's probably the most amazing thing in the world, you know. So to point out one negativity, I think you're just missing the whole point, really, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I've definitely dealt a lot with that, like dealing with like models or something, and I'll think I have like the most like amazing photo, and I'm so on it, and the first thing that comes out of the mouth is like, oh, I don't like the way my face looks, or I don't like the way this looks, or this is what's wrong with it. And it's like, actually over the summer I went and worked with a company that worked with the military over in Korea, and I had to deal with that a lot. Being open to negative, or not necessarily negative feedback, but positive criticism.
Right. Which
if
always
that's-
it always seems
bunny ears.
yeah, it
and
always
quote
seems harsh
positive-
whenever you think of constructive criticism. Like, it sounds great, but if you could just do that a little less, it's like
Well,
you're just
and I
asking me
think
to completely
everyone's
change
gonna
what I
have
just
their
did.
own preferences and their own like opinions, and it's really taking it in and like trying not to take it to heart, but like
Right.
I don't know if this
You gotta
like
be
applies to
prepared
most
for it.
people, but like I'm definitely sensitive, and like you know, someone's like, man, this is shit. I'm just like, oh, this is my like life, you know, like you know, I think
You just
yeah,
shit on your life, man.
with artists and like musicians, whatever your passion is, like if that's what you're passionate about and that's what your life is, it's
Yeah.
like, you know, note to anyone listening, if you criticize somebody's work, like take into consideration that this is what somebody's passion is, this is what their love is like,
Absolutely.
And that you are shitting on their life right now.
so be nice.
So just
support
leave your
your
opinions
support
to
your
yourself.
local artists, support your local musicians.
I've always said that, man. I've always thought that, you know, people need that support, even if it's just like a garage band, or if it's just something so little, you know, support that. Don't shoot down anybody's dreams, because who's this, I mean, it could become anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's one of the blessings that I've had just kind of in my art photography career is there's a lot of bands that I've worked with, a lot of DJs, a lot of entertainment companies, a lot of other artists that I've encountered, that I've photographed, that, you know, I support them, they support me back. Like I've worked with this one funk band like the past 2 years, and like hopefully we'll be showing with them actually I believe it's February 20th, don't quote me on the date. The Soul Creatures are going to be playing in Houston at Visionary Heights. Might have some art out there. I'll definitely be out there taking photos. But I think that's one of the whole things that I see, like, especially in the photography world. I don't know how it is as much in the music world, but just a lot of ego and, like, bumping heads.
Oh, there's plenty of
and,
ego
like,
in bands. There's plenty of ego.
yeah, and instead of, like, supporting each other and like motivating each other forward and like trying to like really find that true art of collaboration, is kind of like, oh, my camera's more expensive than yours, or oh, I've got more lighting equipment than you, or oh, I've got more Facebook fans, and it's just like this, you know, this ego that separates us, where it could be like, you know, that common interest that connects us and binds us and helps us grow.
Totally, yeah.
I think there's a lot that seems as if it's ego as well, and it's really just under the deep meaning of really trying to find what's best for the art, you know, especially in a band where it is about collaboration on the art and everybody's got to be on the same page. It becomes a big deal, and, you know, whenever you think that, you know, some person's just trying to get their word or their message out, the reality is that they very well could possibly be pushing something just because they think that the track or the piece, you know, might ultimately be better if it is that way, you know? So, I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, like some things could be, a lot of the times are ego, but sometimes, you know, it's, you just kind of be kind of cautious of what could be ego or not, you know?
I could speak for myself and say that back in the glory days of Huntsville's music scene, I was very egotistical in the sense that it got to the point where I knew I knew my band was better than every single band for a fact, and anytime we would watch the band that was opening up for us, and I would see like maybe they would screw up a note or they would screw up a song, or I remember this one band, his amp just went out, like there was like a circuit, like a shortage in the,
just like a fuse blew or something.
well, something like that, and he couldn't play his guitar, and he was just sort of standing like, well, I'm fucked. And I remember thinking, oh, that sucks, but it's so much better because we're gonna look so much greater now, because you know, like every time something would happen, I'd be like, points, you know. But
I guess he should have had a backup amp.
Yeah.
He should have been prepared. We're prepared. Why aren't they prepared? Exactly.
Exactly. But I think now, looking back at those days, kind of like what you were saying, those days I refer to as kind of like the Wild West, where everyone was kind of out there for themselves.
Right.
You know, like everyone just wanted to make a good enough first impression that because they wanted to be the breakout band, you know, and I think I guess that's kind of understanding, you know, because you know you're a small town. Everyone wants to make it big. Everyone has huge dreams, and I don't think the first thought is like, oh, I gotta collaborate and I gotta get with these other guys and we gotta have
I gotta
fun.
get mine first. I just prefer like a lot of people have told me that I'm actually like kind of intimidating in person.
Really?
It's actually I'm pretty shy in person, especially in large groups. And like every now and then I catch myself falling into that, like, oh, don't you know who I am?
Right.
Like big shot photographer, blah blah blah. and nobody likes that guy, not even me.
Anybody who says blah 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 on the normal is a piece of shit.
But I mean, I just one of the things I've seen, like, there's always gonna be good and bad, positive and the negative, and it's just my goal for myself is to be more open and less quick to judge on someone else's work, just because back when I first like I showed in Photo Fest when I was 17, so it was like by the time I got to like 20, I thought I was this big shot, and then like it's kind of like I just really didn't realize that I didn't really know that much. I was just I kind of along the way had to accept some humility, but life's a learning process. Absolutely. A growing process, and ultimately, like, if you're not moving forward and you're sitting stagnant I think that's the most dangerous thing for anyone, especially artists, because if you're not trying to grow in your art form, then
and I always think it's better to fail early. I mean, I think once you get that rude awakening real early, I think that really puts more perspective in you. And also it helps you, I think, grow and mature as an artist. That way you know what you're doing. If that's really what you want to do, how to incorporate those life lessons that you learn and eventually become,
this is that photo that's all over Facebook and like Tumblr and everything is like, thanks for the tragedy. I need it for my art.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
So looking at your future, like what's some of the places that you haven't gone or haven't, that you would love to go to take pictures and.
At this point, I mentioned this summer I went to Korea and I went to Africa, and kind of between the two, I had a lot of health issues. So I've kind of been putting my traveling on the back burner to take care of myself and kind of get settled down. I'm actually looking at hopefully starting to go to school. There's kind of this, like, I guess, I don't know what I would call it, but this kind of view or that art school is like, not necessary or not cool. And like I said, it's all about just like learning. Like the more you learn, the more you're going to be able to put into your work. But right now, I'm really focusing more on getting some of my work out there and more like the art community, and less just like, putting more meaning into my work instead of it just being like a million photos on Facebook that everyone posts and, judging yourself on like how many likes this photo gets or whatever.
Right.
Like, but more like actually getting pieces into galleries and doing more of the mixed medium type stuff with my photography versus just taking the photo and it's not being done, but really continuing and focusing on what a photo can be past the point of just capturing that moment on a camera, but also being able to, do some of the mixed medium stuff, we're like taking photos with spray paint and all sorts of stuff like that.
Right.
And like the projections and the wood prints and the metal stuff is just really trying to take it from just being, a guy at a place with a camera or like just working with models all the time to actually creating some pieces that have more meaning. I mean, of course, I do all that other stuff, but that's more just like don't want to be starving artists.
Right.
You got to do something to like,
gotta pay the bills somehow.
Yeah, you got to pay the bills. Gas is cheap, but it ain't free.
Right.
And I spent a lot of time driving from Huntsville to Houston to Austin and Dallas and all over the place. But yeah.
Cool, man.
What kind of places? Like, is it? Do you prefer like doing your own little sessions at a specific spot, or do you like going to like EDM shows and stuff like that?
I love festivals just because there's so much, and I definitely, I think some of the photos that I take where it's not somebody that's looking or somebody that's posed.
Right.
I mean, I definitely like have like photo shoot meetups. I have those like spots that like sometimes I have a spot in mind and a general image or a general pose, and I have this like brilliant idea in my head, and I get there and I cannot make it work. And so I think a lot of any creative form is like having that idea and then trying to get as close to making that idea a reality as possible. And sometimes it works out and it's like exactly what I pictured in my head. And sometimes it's almost that, but not quite. And sometimes it's less than, and sometimes it's more than. Sometimes you find something just totally unexpected. And I think that's one of the things with art is it can be spontaneous, and it doesn't have to be necessarily premeditated. And, I think there's a lot of, being diverse is what I think is one of the most valuable things to any artist, of like being able to, okay, I'm going to meet you here at this time with my camera, and we're going to do this shoot and have this outfit and try and make it look like this. And then there's also like, I'm just going to go to like a music festival and bring my camera. Right. And I mean, sometimes for me, I've got to remember to put my camera down. And, I've had some music festivals where I just like leave the camera in the car and like go wander about and, remind myself to experience life without the camera, which is, it becomes kind of like a comfort zone for me.
Yeah.
Do you ever catch yourself, like being disappointed if the picture isn't exactly kind of what you were thinking it would be, or do you sort of like think of that as its own thing?
Oh, definitely. When I first started doing like music events and like club photography, there'd be times where like I go in or I like take like one or two photos, like maybe like a dozen, and they all look like shit. And I would just like leave. I'd just like turn around and leave.
Fuck this noise, I'm out.
I'd just like act like I was never there. Destroy the evidence. Key to being a good photographer: take out all the bad photos.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, there's definitely times, where I get really antisocial, and like I've had times where I just don't want to be around people, and I can definitely be a perfectionist, be hypercritical, and that's why I got to remember to like try and focus on, and that's why they mean so much when people give me like those positive feedback or that, even if it's just like a, hey, I like your photography, or hey, I support your work, or I've had a couple of times where I've like thought about quitting and people were like, don't you dare, I'll fucking kill you if you stop taking photos. And like at this point it's not like really an option, giving up.
Right.
Would you like to plug any like websites or anything for you? The best way to reach you?
I've got my Instagram as AVF Images. I'm currently still in the process of setting up a website. Maybe by the time we release the podcast, I'll be less of a procrastinator and actually set that up, and we can like post the link with the interview. But the Instagram's AVF Images, Facebook.com/AVF Images. I think Tumblr's AVF Images. And if you ever see a photo with the barcode AVF, that would be me. But also, like, part of it is just like that debate of being an artist, of like not wanting to be around people, but also wanting my work to be seen. Sometimes I like to lay low and just like not have to deal with like a bunch of like random people commenting and like, you know, I need to step away from like that. It's kind of like part of my 2016 goals is stepping away a little bit more from the digital world, and like getting back to reality a little more. And yeah.
Well, I just want to say, first off, I think your art is really, really amazing, man. There's some pictures I saw there that were really great, man.
Yeah,
So I think you got some good stuff.
You're absolutely my first recommendation if anybody has any questions about, hey, you guys know anybody who does any pictures or photographs? I've always kind of linked you into that first, you know, just to make sure that, because, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I do weddings. I do music events.
You said do.
I do. Everybody poops.
This is true.
Groundbreaking.
As far as my understanding.
Groundbreaking news.
Lastly, I guess before we go, man, something that we were curious about is you know, what sort of music are you listening to like nowadays? Like what's something that's catching your fancy?
I'm one of those people that'll get hooked on like one song. I was a long time ago a musician and started off with bass and moved into guitar and piano.
Long time ago. Back
in the day when I had a little better hearing and it hadn't been like quite destroyed by music festivals.
You can always come over and jam, by the way.
I've been listening to a lot of 21 Pilots lately, a lot of cinematic orchestra, a lot of radio because my auxiliary cord on my car stopped working, so that's been interesting. Actually, a lot of classic rock lately. I do listen to the Sam Houston radio station when I'm in town, the 90.5. So shout out to them for actually being like the one station my car gets radio on. You win by default.
Right. Well, if there was like one song that you felt like in this moment right now was something that you just truly enjoyed jamming to, like if you were just to pull out your phone and you were just
the past couple of days, I've had Car Radio by 21 Pilots like on repeat. That song, like I'm one of those people that like if I really get into a song, it'll be like 2 or 3 days or like a week until I never want to hear it again. Or then there's like those songs that I listen to like years later. But the current one's definitely been Car Radio by 21 Pilots.
Well, I say let's give that song a listen.
I guess we can.
I ponder of something great. My lungs will fill and then deflate. They fill with fire, exhale desire. I know it's dire, my time today. I have these thoughts so often I ought to replace that slot with what I once bought. Cause somebody stole my car radio and now I just sit in silence. Sometimes quiet is violent. I find it hard to hide it. My pride is no longer inside. It's on my sleeve, my skin will scream, reminding me of who I killed inside my dream. I hate this car that I'm driving. There's no hiding for me. I'm forced to deal with what I feel. There is no distraction to mask what is real. I could pull the steering wheel. I have these thoughts so often I ought to replace that slot with what I once bought. Cause somebody stole my car radio and now I just sit in silence. binder of something terrifying, cause this time there's no sound to hide behind. I find over the course of our human existence, one thing consists of consistence, and it's that we're all battling fear. Oh dear, I don't know if we know why we're here. Oh my, too deep, please stop thinking. I liked it better when my car had sound. There are things we can do, but from the things that work there are only two, and from the two that we choose to do, peace will win and fear will lose. It is faith and there's sleep. We need to pick one, please, because faith is to be awake, and to be awake is for us to think, and for us to think is to be alive. And I will try with every rhyme to come across like I am dying to let you know you need to try to think. I have these thoughts so often I ought to replace that slot with what I once bought, cause somebody stole my car radio and now I just sit in silence. Binder of something great. My lungs will fill and then deflate. They fill with fire, exhale desire. I know it's dire, my time today. I have these thoughts so often I ought to replace that slot with what I once bought, cause somebody stole my car radio and now I just sit in silence.
So that was pretty surprisingly dope. I will say that right off the bat.
bad.
I was actually very, very nervous as soon as I heard his voice. I was like, ah, shit, what am I about to listen to? But
Yeah, and that's, I think I mentioned to you that during the song, like at first I heard it, I was like, yeah, it is not really my thing, and then like I really gave the lyrics a listen to, and like just the emotions behind the song, and it's just like a really, you know, it's a really out there band, and like I really respect like anyone who's doing something different.
Yeah.
And you know, some of the things I end up like loving the most are the things like at first didn't really get under the skin, but then kind of grew on.
Totally.
Like in the art world, like Frida Kahlo, like I first just like when I was like a kid despised like her artwork, and then like as I grew to understand it a little better, and like really got kind of like the other side of it, I like started loving it, and it's like now she's one of my favorite artists.
Right.
Right.
Going back to that song real quick, man, like I really loved like that, like almost like the progression of it. Like it starts off very, very, very simplistic or whatever, and then a little bit comes in until, you know, the I guess what the breaks for what the chorus would be, you know, it's very, very mellow, very chill, and then at the very end it just blows the fuck up. Like you know, those drums just boom.
Just that like 1 minute. I don't know. I mean, you guys are gonna like post a link to that video, but the video's like, if anyone's listening, go definitely look up the video on YouTube.
Right.
Just that one bit where he's doing like the more like scream style vocals.
Yeah.
Is just like that kind of contrast between like the slow and different to just like the really heavy,
Yeah.
Right.
and then coming back to it. It's just
The dynamic from one to the other.
the roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's very much felt a cycle. You know, you start one place, you go through one thing, and then you end up right back where you started.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty trippy. But
Is there anything that you felt like you needed to let anybody know before we end this?
I just like to say thank you guys for having me out today. It's actually been a really cool experience, and
Thank you.
anyone listening, I hope you got something out of this. I hope you liked listening to it. Go find my art somehow. We'll have a website eventually. Hopefully be having some art shows soon. And anyone who's an artist out there, just keep doing what you're doing.
absolutely.
Sounds great.
All right, thanks a lot, Alex. Man, we appreciate it, brother.
Oh, man.